Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, please click on like and subscribe. If you've been here before, welcome back. Today we're going to be building this little cat cutting board. Now you do need a CNC machine to do it this way and a laser program possibly if you want to laser engrave it. Now the softwares I'm using are not really compatible with each other, so I'm using an Xtool laser program, which is Creative Space, and I'm using Easel for my CNC machine. So I have to create SVG files. So what I'm doing is I'm importing my basic cat design here. I'm not going to copy the cat design, but I'm going to outline it. So I've created an outline of it. I'm opening a new canvas and I'm saving just the outline of the cat. I'm going to go back to the cat picture and I'm going to create another offset. So when I create the offset this time, what I want to do is increase it to the size of my board thickness between my juice groove and my outside barrier. So if I want a 1/2 inch gap between my outside edge and my juice groove, I'm going to make this a 0.5 offset or 0.25 or whatever you want. I'm going to take that picture and I'm going to copy it to another canvas. So I'm pretty much going to end up with 3 canvases when I get done on my Xtool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save each one of those files independently as an SVG file. If I was going to cut this out the same depth, I could save it as one image. But since I'm actually going to create a juice groove out of one image and I'm going to cut the outline out of the other image, I want to actually take this piece here, since it's going to be my outside edge, paste it into my new page, and then I'm going to save them again independently. So for my Xtool here, I'm going to convert this to an SVG file. Now if your software does both, or if you can automatically make an SVG file, that's great. I think some of the Laser Light, some of the other programs will actually let you do that. Again, the software I'm using, though, unfortunately doesn't let me do that, so it caused me an extra step. So I'm going over my easel here, and I'm pasting, or I'm inserting my SVG files. So I've got my outside border, my inside juice groove, and my overall picture. So I'm going to do the overall picture first, and then I can resize my overall picture to whatever size I want it to be. Then I can separate the two, so I'm going to create a group. When I group these together, when I make it bigger or smaller, I can actually resize the inside and outside lines at the same time. Hopefully that makes sense to you. If you don't do it this way and you try to just change the size, they don't always overlay with each other the right way. So you want to group them together, make them bigger, smaller at the same time, and then go back in, ungroup it, and then separate both pieces again onto different canvases once you get them to the size you want. As you can see here, I've got my outside cut, which I've changed the cut depth all the way through the board. I've got my full picture, so I can make it bigger, smaller. I can save this if I want to make another one. And then I've got my inside juice groove, which I've got set to cut at an 1/8 inch deep. That's pretty much the hardest step of making this cutting board. I'm going to go out and find me a nice piece of cherry now. I'm just looking for something with a nice design on it. As you can see, this has got some nice ribbing on it, some nice edges, and since it's a cat, it'll make a nice cat pattern. I can put the body down where the bigger swirls are and the head up towards where the smaller swirls are. And I'm just going to cut this down to a rough size that I need. And then after I get that done, we'll go over to the planer and we'll plane this down. Now this is 1 inch cherry. This is about a 12 inch wide piece of cherry, so I don't have to piece it together, which will make nice. But if you have to, you can always put together a cutting board and cut your picture out of that, just like you normally would making a cutting board. And since it's not a large cutting board, I'm not going to leave it at 1 inch. I'm going to just take it down to where I'm between 3/4 and 1 inch on there, pretty much to when I see the groove or the grain of the wood looking nice, and I'll leave it at that. If it was a bigger cutting board, we'd leave it a little bit thicker, but we want it to match pretty much what we're trying to make. So I've glued my piece to the CNC machine. The first thing I did was cut out my juice groove, and then I'm going to cut out my outline. As you can see, the machine's pretty much doing most of the work for me. After the machine gets it cut out, I'm going to go back and we'll put it in a router and we'll round over the edges a little bit, make it nice and soft. And one thing I didn't mention in the dimensions or in the design when I was designing it, my software lets me shape this a little bit, so I had some sharp angles on here, and since I knew I was going to round it over, I did go in and soften the edges so I could go around it better with the round over. That way you're not trying to get in there with sandpaper and try to make it work, or you don't leave burn marks trying to get in the cracks and crevices like that little corner right there I just passed. Now we're off to everyone's favorite job, and that's sanding. I'm using an 80 grit at first, and then I'm going to switch over to a 120. The 80 I'm not going to go deep since it's a nice piece of cherry. I've already planed it. It doesn't need a lot. But the 80 will take off any rough edges, any anything, any burn marks or anything you might have got from the rounder or the round over. We'll switch it to a 120, and then we're going to switch it to a 220 when we get done and we're ready to finish the product. I want to make sure I take a piece of sandpaper by hand. I'm going to get down to the juice groove. And if you're using a CNC to cut the juice groove like I did or something like that, check and make sure you don't have any sharp edges on there. It is wood, but you can still get some sharp edges, and you can cut yourself on it, or you can actually get a splinter or something like that. So make sure you've got everything nice and smooth on the inside of your juice groove off. So after my 120, I'm just taking a wet towel here and I'm wiping off all the grooves and edges. And while I'm doing this, I'm just kind of feeling it too and making sure there's nothing sharp, nothing I missed on it. And I'm checking for any type of burn marks or anything that may need sanded again. After this dries, about an hour, we're going to hit it with a 220, and then it'll be ready for finishing. After the final sanding here, I'm going to make sure there's no other edges on it. I'm going to check, and if there's any grooves or anything that needs touched up, I'm going to touch it up. And then we're going to put some cutting board oil on it and put some board wax on it, and it should be ready to go. And this is just, I'm using Bearded Chef. You can use whatever brand cutting board wax you want. Hope everyone enjoyed the video. Please click on like, subscribe, drop a comment down below, and we'll see you on the next video.